Welcome to the first episode of the Engagerfy Working Together podcast. My name is Lorston Streaks, and I'm the founder of Engagerfy Limited, a UK-based employee engagement startup focused on helping organizations bring the H back into HR while creating memorable workplaces. The aim of this podcast series is to look at the variety of issues relating to employee engagement in the workplace from both the employee and employer's perspective. Now, the issue of employee engagement is something that is front and center on the minds of many managers. But while this is the case, from a numbers perspective, many organizations still have been unable to translate their staff morale intentions into reality, with statistics here in the UK showing that only 10% of employees are actually engaged at work, with the UK ranked 33rd in Europe according to recent statistics from Gallup. Now, Engagerfy was created to bring change to the employee engagement landscape with our B2B software as a service or a SaaS software, which seeks to help organizations create memorable workplaces, as I mentioned before, by bringing the H back into HR. Now, with this podcast series, we look to provide an additional avenue where this important issue can be discussed and analyzed. As mentioned at the start of this podcast, we'll be doing this from both the employee and employer perspective. Now, in today's inaugural episode, we'll just be going over the basics and exploring why having a clear and consistent focus on employee engagement is beneficial for your organization. Now, if you're an employee listening to this podcast, welcome, and rest assured that we at Engagerfy are doing our best to get more organizations to understand the best ways to create and, most importantly, sustain a culture of employee engagement within their organization. Now, let's start at the beginning. In essence, employee engagement looks at how connected, excited, and happy an employee is at work, how they enjoy their job. Are they excited to be at work? Are they committed to do a good job every day? Do they enjoy working for the organization that they're employed at? Now, of course, there will never be 100% employee engagement. There will always be something that an individual doesn't like. But when you start getting statistics like 10% in the UK for employee engagement and a global average of around 23%, this means that the majority of employees are merely going through the motions. The end goal, the weekly or monthly paycheck. Now, the truth is, this has been going on for years, and during the corresponding time frame, there have been several attempts within organizations and in the software industry to put a reversal to this with the aim of a consistent upward trajectory of employee engagement levels. But, to be honest, such goals have never truly fully materialized. So, why does Engagerfy think that it can do what seems to be the impossible? Well, we believe it starts with a realization that employee engagement can't be seen in isolation, that businesses must look at all of the corresponding variables that can have an impact on employee engagement, things such as the recruitment and retirement process and company sentiment, how the general population feels about the organization. Now, this is very critical and important in today's technological and internet-driven economy. Now more than ever, external viewpoints can have an impact on your organization's employee engagement levels. Let's take, for example, a company that is very unpopular in the minds of the public. In today's internet-driven world, there is a strong possibility that a number of your employees would read, hear, or watch these negative views online, and this in turn can influence their overall view of the organization, especially if on a day-to-day level they experience what they perceive to be an organization that doesn't have the employee's best interests in mind. Now, businesses must also be aware of the us versus them, where management will have certain rules and policies in place for employees, but management themselves are not expected to maintain and keep that same standard. Now, an example of this is a new US-based CEO of a large coffee chain who is driving a return to the office policy while he is working remotely based in another state, from time to time commuting to the office by private jet. Now, as CEO of a company, you must lead by example, and it should not appear that special and unique considerations and exemptions are being made for you, while everyone else is expected to adhere to a completely different set of rules. Now, to be honest, it will be interesting to see what happens during the next few months at that organizations in terms of their productivity, employee engagement, and revenue figures. But the general CEO versus the rest of staff policy is not one which should be emulated. But unfortunately, an us versus them feeling occurs, I would say still occurs at many organizations. The recent global pandemic also had an impact on the us versus them perception, with the initial embrace of work from home slowly fading and more, especially for non management employees or junior or mid level management employees, being asked to return to the office either on a full time basis or let's say two, three, 4 times a week. Now, the decision to return to the office full time or for X days a week has to be made by each individual business based on unique considerations, to that particular organization. However, one thing remains universal across the board, and that is the importance of any decision made appearing to be transparent and fair. If all employees are required to return to the office except the CEO and senior level staff, then that begs the question, why are they afforded that privilege? To staff members, no reason given will seem justifiable, and understandably so. Hence, when a company makes a return to work policy but senior staff are exempt, how can that organization reasonably expect that employees will be happy and that productivity will magically rise because staff are back in the office? In fact, the opposite is most likely to occur with a decrease in productivity, as many staff will feel upset at the us versus them approach. This is why the answer at the center of any discussion on employee engagement is communication. Not communication among senior management to make unilateral decisions, but discussion with everyone in the organization. Of course, these discussions can be facilitated without employee engagement software, but having a solid employee engagement platform can elevate your discussions with staff and also provide further insights. As I mentioned before, at Engagerfy, we are seeking to bring the H back into HR and help organizations create memorable workplaces. In this podcast series, as I mentioned, we will take a look at some of the key features and benefits of Engagerfy, of course. But more importantly, we will discuss the issue of employee engagement and its key variable of communication. The aim of this podcast series is to provide information and to also increase the discussion of employee engagement, not only at a national level here in the UK, but also at a pan-European and global level. Subscribe to this podcast to be kept up to date about new releases and other information from the Engagerfy team. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time, wishing you and your team a wonderful and productive week. Cheers.